Okay, so yesterday, uh, Donald Trump officially declared the war over, which was like, what? um, and naturally, I'm talking about the incursion into Iran. Um, Pulled away from Dawn mid-interview, returns with stuttering spell. Interesting. So we see now. I'm just going to show you Drudge Report. Drudge Report. Iran taunts USA from streets. Protesters burn Trump coffins. Six killed in crash of U.S. refueling plane in Iraq, military says. Pentagon sends Marine Expeditionary Unit down to Middle East. NATO shoots down another missile fired towards Turkey. Kamikaze drone blasts Dubai Financial Center. UAV strike has Cyprus and Europe on edge. Already won or got to finish the job. White House confusion. Okay. So everything is in turmoil right now. Today's Friday the 13th, so please God, you know what? I'm not the best prayer, but let me just do this one thing, okay? Maybe you could do it with me. You probably know the words. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Jesus, please help me through this one. So, just in case you haven't picked up on it, I'm a Christian. I believe Christianity is the ultimate truth. I believe that Jesus was the creator that came into our reality and explained to us how we needed to be and what we were doing wrong. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think other people can think other things. I'm totally fine with it. In fact, that was kind of like the whole point of the Christian message. It was like, let's talk about it. Let's, you know what? I don't know what's in your heart. I don't know what's in your soul. Something called Imago Dei in Christianity, meaning that everybody is made in the image of God. So right now I'm just talking ideas, and this is the perspective that I see it from. Although I'm going to step back a little bit, and I'm going to do what Professor Jiang. I don't know if you've seen him. He's blown up on the internet recently, and in fact, that's one of the things I'm going to show you. Is he was on Piers Morgan uh, with a program that popped up on YouTube yesterday, and I want you to listen for just a minute, okay? Because it's unbelievable to me this kind of stuff is being mainstreamed, and yet it is. So Zhang is a game theorist, and he's blown up on the internet for putting out videos talking about what some people's motivations might be. Although he doesn't, he was on a program with this guy named Sneeko, a YouTuber. I posted about it the other day. What is that? And Sneeko asked him what he actually believed to be the ultimate truth, and it's a little bit wacky. He believes in a kind of like a monistic world where we're all part of God, and somehow we're all just trying to like realize ourselves. So, in his worldview, um, he's just talking about things that he sees happening outside of him, even though he kind of believes it's happening inside of him, and we're all one. And what he really wants to do is just kind of talk. I believe he's a high school teacher, and he is put up this series of lectures on the internet that you can find on his YouTube page, which I'll just post underneath below. I'm not going to do it right now, but I want you to watch this, okay? And just listen. Just listen, because this is being normalized by guys like Piers Morgan, who's a boomer, who is really a secularist. I mean, he's not a Christian. He's a cultural Christian. He is a Christopher Hitchens. Oh, excuse me, not Christopher Hitchens. The other new atheist, whose name will come to me in a second. But they say they're cultural. Richard Dawkins. They say they're cultural Christians, so they want everything that they want the world and the morality and the ethics that was created by Christianity. They just don't want to have to believe that Jesus was God. Okay? Because they say that's too difficult to believe. Now, I just put up a post about that, and I included it with a notebook video a Notebook LM explainer to try to really make it so that it breaks down the ideas for people that don't like to read that much. But I will get into telling you why I'm talking about all this kind of stuff. But like my question is for you, how far would you go to protect your family? This is kind of like the thing that separates humanity from the animals is like how far we can think about that, extrapolate out on that. Like philosophy is this idea of thinking about thinking, but when we talk about ethics, we need to ground that somewhere. So like it usually kind of goes with the classic example is the trolley example where you have one track that goes straight ahead and there's like a switch right there in front of it, and then there's like four people on the track, and then if you pull the switch it actually goes over and it kills one person. Do you flip the switch? Well, you need more information. You need to know who those four people are. You need to know who that one person is. If that one person is your brother, your father, your son, a family member, somebody from your extended family, somebody that looks like you, somebody that, well, what if it's like four white people and one black person? Like these are all questions that people calculate when they think about things like ethics and morality. And is like, what if that one kid is going to grow up to be Hitler? Like these are all different ways that you can look at it and kind of think about these questions. But these are extenuating things that we don't think about. And if we're just looking at things through a game theory lens, we can say this. We can point to events that are happening in the world, but they don't tell us what we ought to do about that. So now I want you to listen to Mr. Jiang because he is actually he's very interesting. I've watched some of his content, but what he says here is unbelievable. I can't even believe this is not taken down yet.
Right. At the heart and the head of the American economy is the President of the United States. You've argued that Trump is not the most powerful person in America, and you've inferred that actually the real power base is Israel. Explain that. Right. So I actually don't say the real power base is Israel. What I say is that the real power base are a collection of societies that have an eschatological view of this war. And these societies include
Just for the record, I have this at 1.25 speed. I think that people can, generally speaking, handle that.
The Freemasons, which are now called the Rosicrucians and the Knights Templars. They include Jewish organization called the Sephardim Frankists, who are embedded in religious movements called Shabbat Lubavitch. And then you have the Jesuits. You have a collection of secret societies. And they believe that a war in the Middle East would start a process that would culminate in the end times and the return of Jesus, the arrival of the Jewish Messiah, the building of a one world government. They have different eschatologies, but a lot of the
And eschatology is your view of the end times, okay?
the time frames do align. Where they converge is that there has to be a war in the Middle East to kick things off. This war in the Middle East will lead to the defeat of the American Empire, and this will lead to the culmination of the Greater Israel Project, where Israel is able to control the Middle East from the Nile to the Euphrates. Once the Greater Israel Project is in place, it will transform into the Pax Judaica, which is an AI surveillance state. This will eventually lead to the war of Gog and Magog, the destruction of the Isaac Mosque and the building of the Third Temple, the return of the Jewish diaspora to Jerusalem, and the arrival of the Jewish Messiah or the Antichrist. So they have the script scripted out. And unfortunately, a lot of world events are conforming to this script. Right. I mean, a lot of people say a lot of what you just said is a load of fantastical baloney and driven by anti-Semitic tropes. What do you say to that? Look, I completely sympathize with this argument. 5 years ago, I would have said the same thing about this sort of argument and thinking. So what I do is predictive modeling, okay? Meaning that I'm going to throw some theories out there, and then based on these theories, I'm going to extrapolate into the future and see what the predictions are. If these predictions are correct, then my theories ought to have some legitimacy. Now, when I teach, I don't engage in historical analysis. I engage in speculative analysis. And so in 2024, 2 years ago, I did say that this war in Iran would happen, and I provided a lot of my analysis. And a part of my analysis that's very important is the eschatological analysis, meaning that Christian Zionists control the United States. There's a preacher called John Hagee who runs an organization called Christians United for Israel, which has about 7 million members. Christian Zionists are heavily embedded in the national security apparatus, and then in the Pentagon, there's reporting that U.S. commanders have told their troops that this is a war to bring back Jesus, and to be not afraid. So that's my argument. Like, I don't want to believe this, but because this war in Iran is happening, I'm forced to conclude that some of my speculative analysis has validity. Otherwise,
well, I think to be honest, I think the word speculation doesn't quite do it justice. I mean, look, there's no doubt your predictions so far have been proven to be uncannily accurate in relation to Trump winning and then going to war with Iran. But I think the idea that this is all part of a plot to bring back Jesus Christ, look, there might be some people out there that carry such a phrase. I think it's highly unlikely, unless any evidence emerges to the contrary, that they are current commanders in the United States military. But Professor Zhang, you have a big following. Lots of people are.
Okay, so it's mind blowing to me that that's out there on the internet right now. But he's describing something that it's esoteric, it's occult, it's very difficult to wrap your head around, and it requires a lot of expertise in a lot of different ways. Sort of like how you would think about the trolley problem. But if you looked at the trolley problem, you could say, if you were trying to break it down by the numbers, you could say, okay, so there's the switch, and then there's the one track, and there's the other track, and for if you were just looking at it, with 4 and 1, okay, you would save the 4, right? You would have sacrificed the 1. But if you were looking at it and you start adding some factors to it, like the belief systems, or maybe one is Islam and one is Judaism, or one is Christianity and one is Judaism, it starts to change the calculus. And what he's saying is he's adding these different factors into by kind of like looking at things through his own personal worldview and things that are kind of out there in the internet. Some of them conspiracy theory, some of them real. But we are actually, I mean, like there's actually a kinetic war taking place in Iran, and a lot of people think that that is the kind of trigger for the eschaton, including a lot of evangelical Christians. And so when the claim was made that some of the commanders said to the troops that this is about bringing back Jesus, I mean, there's a lot of people that believe that. There's a lot of people that believe that. So there's definite, and it seems like world events are moving forwards in such a way that there's a lot of things that you can't deny that are happening right now. Like these events are taking place. But here's what I want to throw at you, okay? Because this is part of what I did this morning, the video explainer, and I'm going to try to wrap this up because I really just want to try to make one point. People act out on what they believe, and your calculations change depending on who you are. And throughout human history, undeniably, there have been many, many cults, and those cults sacrifice people for things that they want. So when Jiang looks at it and when Piers Morgan look at it, they're doing like this kind of like cold analysis. Piers from like the world of just the Popperonian, is that the word for it? So Karl Popper had a world view that he called the open society and its enemies. A lot of us kind of live under that in Rawlsianism, where like just you want to protect the innocent, and the function of government is to kind of determine between what is true and what is not, and it stays out of conspiracy theories and things like that. But there is political science, and I believe that what Jiang is doing is he's doing like a blend of political science and esoteric knowledge, because that's what he gets into. And there is a lot of different interest groups that are doing very interesting things, and they all seem to be circling around the biblical land, the biblical people, or I should say the people of the Tanakh, the Jewish people, and the geographical landmass of Israel. Why does that matter? So there's different standards of evidence, right? Some are speculative, some are something that you can actually put into your little calculation there. And some are led by belief. And a lot of people who are secular don't understand that that's actually a belief system. And so it says that you can take certain things as truth and certain things you kind of discount. And that's kind of what Pierce does. But Jiang is kind of like bringing back this esoteric perspective that says like, no, 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 there's things that motivate people to do certain things. And he says it's about Pax Judaica, which is supposed to bring this kind of like surveillance state where everybody is connected to the fourth industrial revolution. This is basically the argument that he's making, and I've seen other people make this, and I think they've made it really well. And it's kind of undeniable that this, like here in Canada, with Bill C9, they're trying to police religious speech. Why? Because they don't want certain things said. Okay, so what's the function of being able to have free speech as long as you're not actually targeting anyone? It's so that you can actually think freely around an issue, even things that to some people they would rather dismiss. And sometimes especially to things that sometimes people wish that you would dismiss. So the question I would have to ask about to Jiang is why would anybody want that? You know what I mean? Like, why would anybody want to create a massive police surveillance state and destroy everything that exists, or at least kind of like put everything under control under this grid and have it? A lot of people have theorized about how artificial intelligence, myself included, have theorized about how artificial intelligence is going to be used in this. And I think it's Web 3.0 that they're building, and there's gonna be the Internet of Bodies and Internet of Things, and it's all gonna be kind of like gatewayed by artificial intelligence, and also we're all gonna get a universal basic like this should all be kind of like common knowledge at this point. But if you don't have an eschatological worldview through which to view this scenario, it doesn't become as desperate to you now. Like it doesn't become as like immediate. It does not immanentizing the eschaton. This whole idea that you want to bring something forward. You want to bring something forward out of what is, which is essentially what we're doing with artificial intelligence, right? You're bringing information forward out of a pool of information. So it's not quite as rigid and full of like the egoic problems that human beings have. So it might actually just treat everybody as pieces of data. And this is something that I've also pointed out would happen if this scenario, this nightmare scenario, were to take place. And I'm like, well, who would actually want that? And so a lot of people now seem to be believing that there's some kind of like Jewish cabal or something like that that is doing all of this stuff. But is it related to Jewish eschatology? In a way, yes. Do they want their Mashiach to come? Yes. But what do they want from that? They want to make the world a better place. They want to heal the sick. They, in some cases, want to resurrect the dead. They want the world to be a better place. They want 1,000 years of peace. That's a good thing. Why wouldn't you want that? How far would you go in the trolley problem to get it? And because that is a function of their eschatology and the way that they view things, it's kind of easy to scapegoat them and think that they're behind like this plot to rule the world or do Pax Judaica or whatever it is that Jiang seems to believe. But I don't think that there's like it doesn't make sense that human beings would want to do that to other human beings because presumably it's like that kind of case of where you have two different leaders of two different parties, and if you give them too many powers, if you give them a power to kind of like use it as political warfare against the other party, and they were to get in charge, they would then have access to that same apparatus to use it against you. So it's why would you ever create a scenario where it's like not only how many people are going to die, who knows, but why would you engage in that stuff? And what I'm saying is there really is secret society ways of thinking, and I think that it goes way back. But I'm not saying that this is a group of specific individuals, but it's certainly not the Jewish people as a whole. But it kind of like aligns with things that they want, and it also aligns with things that the Christian Zionists and evangelicals want. Not all, hashtag not all, but a lot of them are kind of like pushing for this thing. Just as Zhang indicated, there were over 200 reports that these generals from different places, that these colonels or generals or whatever, the commanders of the troops, were saying that this is about bringing back Jesus. So Christians are not off the hook on this, right? There's no individual person that is off the hook on this, and you don't want to see people as a monolith, okay? Because people are not monoliths. People are individuals with individual beliefs and individual things that motivate them. And if that one particular individual had that one person on the trolley track problem, if it was like their son, how many people would you take out to protect your son? Now that completely changes the dynamics. But what if in the trolley track example you had one person left, and you chose the one person over the four, but that one person was going to live in bondage for the rest of their lives? Would you still pull the switch? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there is the problem of corruption, and how far would you go to protect something? How far would you go to protect um, a lie? Or people can say something thinking that it's true, and it could actually be based on a lie, and they wouldn't know that. So people like Piers Morgan, if Piers Morgan is a secular but a cultural Christian, he doesn't understand why that doesn't actually function, or can't be the kind of thing that can make a functional society, as we see, because that has led to things like the concept of the fourth industrial revolution, the biodigital convergence, all of this stuff. It just has, like, it's undeniable. It is the result of a secular belief system that says we're all part of an evolutionary trajectory moving forwards in time, and that we're bound to be a transhuman. And these are the kinds of people that will say, well, as far as transhumanism goes, you already use a cell phone, so you're already partially a cyborg. Like, this is the kind of things they will say. Undeniable. Not everybody. But like, if you had dirty secrets in your past, which is why the Epstein thing is so significant, and why so many people are so emotionally drawn to this kind of argument, is that if somebody had some dirt on you, how far would you go to cover it up? And that's why a lot of people are thinking that, and I'm not saying I believe this, but a lot of people are thinking that Israel had some dirt on Donald Trump, and that's why he got dragged into a war with Iran, something he over and over again promised he wouldn't do. Now, the people on the left are all thinking, well, of course, that's what he would do. He is totally corrupted. He's controlled by it. And there's a lot of anti-Semitism on the left, unfortunately, because, I'm not going to get into that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying, the piece in the video explainer I put up this morning talk about different kinds of evidence. It talks about different kinds of evidence, okay? Different standards of evidence. And one of them is divine kind of evidence, and one of them is empirical evidence, okay? And we engage in the scientific method to find empirical evidence for things, for claims. And then we can also use divine inspiration. So people that deny divine inspiration are people kind of like Piers Morgan. They don't believe that there is a spiritual aspect to humanity, something that Zhang obviously does, which is where their kind of two worlds don't mesh, which is why Piers is kind of rejecting the things that he's saying. But there are, again, I mean, Zheng is going off of a lot of things that you can find the lineage, you can trace the threads, you can put together this kind of scenario, thinking these are these people's motivations, and that's why it makes sense. He's doing game theory. He's doing the trolley problem with more facts about the individuals on the track and the individual standing beside the switch. And the truth is, you know what? I actually want you to just go and read the kind of conversation. What I did was I did a dialogue with Grok this morning based off of something that a evangelical Christian had written, and you can see the enthusiasm is there. People want Jesus to come back. Like, this is not deniable, but you're not supposed to invoke Jesus's return. No one can know the time of the day, right? The day or the hour, the specific words, it doesn't matter. The point is that you're not supposed to force God's hand. But what if, and I'm speaking theoretically here, what if people were purposely using the sentiments of a lot of the left and a lot of the people so-called on the woke right, and they're using just kind of the arguments that they're making, this kind of like befuddled, like what is happening right now kind of argument, and trying to actually make sense of it in a way that you could understand. It seems like people are trying to scapegoat Israel so that Israel itself, which if you're talking about it, there's about 8 million people there, and there's a billion Muslims in the surrounding area. Now, if you were to look at things specifically from Judaism versus Islam, those are not good numbers. Those are not favorable numbers. So you would have to manipulate people in quite a way. But the fact is that what if, and this is something that was, I saw it somewhere, somebody said it, and I went, oh, well, that's an interesting thought. And what the person had said was, what if there was a sect of the Jewish people that remained Jewish after the life and times of Jesus that were actually responsible for creating Islam? Well, they wouldn't really be Jewish people, but they would be people with a kind of like uh, they would be unhappy about the rise of Christianity and its connection and absorption into the Roman Empire, and the fact that this guy who they thought was just some liar, and you don't know, you're going generations down, so it's difficult to tell how people are interpreting things. And it's not like today; there wasn't ubiquitous information. There would just be word of mouth, and then some books and scriptures passing back and forth. It was a lot more difficult to disseminate information back then. The point is that you would have a lot more time to think about this kind of stuff and plot stuff, and you know there's no surveillance, so you kind of come up with these ideas, and very thoughtful people might have, I've watched people give this presentations based on the veracity of Islam as a religion, and like whether Muhammad even existed. And I'm not trying to say any of that. I'm just saying that it's interesting that these two religious groups are so much against each other, and right now you have Israel, which is basically like, it's like they're daring Islam to come after them, which is insane, but they are. And they're trying to pit Christians against Islam. So really, I mean, if anything happens, if anything significant happens in Israel, God forbid, or in the United States, and it's blamed on Islamic terror groups, you need to understand that the people that forever in Israel, like even going back before the life and times of Jesus Christ, they came up with a religion that, for whatever reason, it could have been divinely inspired, which means like channeled. They could have like truly had people that were prophets and written down things, and a lot of the things that they said were actually good for humanity, right? It was better than most religions that existed in that day. And it was kind of like, so they would say, of course, our thing is divinely inspired, but also it seems like quite a bit of it may be fabricated. Okay, so and that's part of the Substack that I put up earlier. And so what I'm saying, when you would do something for yourself, and when money gets involved, and when your family gets involved, and when all these different reasons get involved, your motivations can become corrupted. And so what if what is happening right now is the people that had made a lot of progress being Jewish and pushing the idea of the Jewish religion, and they were looking for evidence, archaeological evidence all over Israel, and they weren't finding what they needed to make it stick, which is why constantly you'll see people like Mike Huckabee and others say, "Oh no, look at all the evidence we found for the historical Israel." But if you actually look into it, the physical evidence for Solomon's first temple, not very much. The Exodus, not very much. Moses, not very much. Abraham, not very much. And they all kind of like, there's been people that have suggested, not me, I'm not an expert, but I have given videos from other people, and so a lot of them, these are people that are ethnically Jewish, and they will tell you that they look for evidence of this uh, great civilization of Israel that beat the Canaanite people and took over that area because it was given to them by God, and they won all these wars because there was divine intervention and inspiration. And they will look for it, and they will lose their faith because they go, "It's not. We can't find it. It's not really there." So if you were trying to, let's say, keep everything that you already had, and you didn't want anybody to find out that, okay, well, maybe some people made some stuff up and it's given me plenty of things in my life, money, power, status, family. You want to protect your family, of course, but you want to hide the evidence that there was this kind of crime, right? We're talking ideas here, just like Jiang. If he's allowed to do it, so am I. If you want to hide the evidence that something was not necessarily as true as you've been trying to tell everybody for a long time that it is, and you had this other group, and this is very difficult to say. I'm trying not to. You had this other group, and you could use that other group to come in and blow to smithereens the archaeological evidence that doesn't exist, but now you can claim that it always did exist, and because we have this evidence that we found little pieces and bits and boggles, and you would still be able to say that because nobody would ever be able to tell you any different. Because if Israel, the landmass, was blown off of the map, where would you look for it? It's been blown up. It's gone. It's definitely still true, though. You know what I'm saying? But who would do that to their own family? Who would do that to their own people? Who would do that to other people? That's where you start getting into occultism and corruption, and essentially that's the way that in Christianity we say the devil works. The devil works by using people and using their corruption against them, making kind of like bargains. That's and what with you look around today and you see all the kind of like straight up devil worship at all the award shows and the videos and the music and like what's going on there? And it's because there's this kind of like idea that if you make a deal with the devil, he can give you access to power, and depending on what you're willing to sacrifice, maybe you can get more power. And there's some people that definitely believe that stuff and dabble in it. And but I'm very concerned right now that a lot of the Christians that say that you must bless Israel and protect Israel, what if they're definitely right? Because what the devil's plan is, and so obviously this is going now through my own Christian worldview. What if the devil's plan is to destroy the evidence so that you'll never know, and then we just fight each other? Um, Islam and Christianity goes at it, and who's left of the Jewish people. If you listen to Alexander Dugin, somebody I've been writing about over the last couple of days, he is from the kind of like Russian Eastern Orthodox Church, and he believes that they are the true church, not the Roman Church. He sees the Roman Church, he calls them the Atlanticists, and he kind of like traces the lineage through the British and the Americans, and he calls them people that kind of like spread their ideology by sea, and so it's liquid, and that's the way that he thinks about it. He thinks about like it can kind of be changed, and that's why he associates it with transgenderism and this idea of depravity and immorality and all the kinds of things that we see happening in the West. That's kind of like, to each his own. But there's kinds of weird things that we've been doing to children, and that bothers a lot of people. People from Islam, people from more conservative backgrounds, people that understand that no, we got to protect the children. And I'm rambling now, but at this point, this idea that Russia is the true church and that they are what do they call themselves? We are the Atlanticists, and he sees them as the. Again, this is all fairly new information for me. And I'm not that smart of a person, but I have been using artificial intelligence to kind of go over all of these ideas. Um, because it's this really is the kind of conversation that we need to have. And it's difficult to make sense of anything in the world unless you kind of know that this is all about religion at this point. And so there's Atlanticism and Eurasianism. So this is kind of Alexander Dugin's philosophy. Atlanticism, thalassocracy, led by the US and the UK, it's defined by sea power, commerce, individual rights, and liberal democracy. To Dugin, this is a liquid civilization that dissolves traditional identities in borders. Eurasianism is what he sees himself as part of Tellurocracy, led by Russia. It's defined by land power, hierarchy, tradition, and collective identity. This is solid and rooted in the soil. So, I would, if you've had anything that I've said here kind of like resonate with you, I would go and look at the video explainers that I've done and then read the actual pieces. They're not that long, and I do them in kind of like a dialogue with artificial intelligence because it's way smarter than I am. But it's not it's just this kind of like collection of information that we can all access now, and anybody can go. The best part about what's happening right now is that anybody can go fact check stuff that I'm saying on the fly, and as long as you're not putting your own personal bias into it, and you might say, oh well, you're a Christian, you're putting your own personal bias into it. The only thing that I know is my own personal bias is that I believe that rights come in the West from Jesus, but they also come in the East from Jesus by Alexander Dugin's own definition. Okay, I hope that makes some kind of sense. In any case, I really hope that cooler heads prevail and we can kind of stop this and we can all just kind of like make up and realize that we do indeed have a collective destiny. And if we're going to try to blow each other up instead of talk it over, that's obviously not the best possible scenario. So I have kids, and I want the world they grow up in to be better than the world that I grew up in. And that's really my only main motivation, because if I were doing the trolley test and there were four people I didn't know and my kids on the other side of the track, I would pull the lever. I'm just telling you that flat out. I would do that to protect my kids, because as a father, that's what I would do. But as a Christian, I would beg God to intervene. Okay. Hey, God bless you guys. It's certainly an interesting time to be alive. Take heart, have faith. Jesus loves you. God bless.